Good morning and welcome to Cornell Cooperative Extension, monthly consumer issues program. My name is Kenneth McLaurin and I'm the financial educator here at CCE. Today's topic is being a wise consumer in the utilities market. Today we have New York State Assistant Attorney General Mike Danna here with us, and he will discuss this topic with you. So over to you, Mike.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Kenneth, for the introduction. As Kenneth mentioned, I'm Mike Danaher, an Assistant Attorney General with the New York State Attorney General's Office. And we do come out and speak monthly at the Cornell Cooperative Extension on various consumer-related topics. Now, today's topic is being a good consumer or wise consumer in the utility market. And everybody goes, oh my gosh, utilities. So isn't that just something that we just take for granted and we have, and you just call a utility company and they give you utilities? Well, it's not as simple as that. I know that sometimes our eyes roll up in the back of our heads when we start talking about gas and electric and cable and all those things, but it can be a complicated area, but one that we still have to be good consumers at to understand what our needs are and also understand and evaluate our options that we might have as far as utility goes. There's always ways that you can investigate to see whether utility usage, whatever it may be, can be adjusted somewhat. In some areas, there's more choices than other areas, but now is a good point in time for us to understand that utility market, understand what our options are available, and then more importantly, being good consumers in evaluating those options that we might have. Electric and gas. That's kind of the first thing I think about. That and telephone is what I typically think about when somebody says utilities to me. And gas and electric are a big thing. It's really a big concern now. And when we think back about it, when I first started talking about these consumer issues almost 20 years ago at Cornell Cooperative Extension, there wasn't a whole heck of a lot to talk about because there weren't that many options that were available with the gas and electric. You just called your local provider, NYSEG, or some people in the outlying areas might be National Grid, or whoever, down in New York City area, it was always Con Ed and that, and you just call them up and you say, okay, flip the switch and I'll get gas and electric. Well, things have changed markedly over the last several years, where we have to do a good job in deciding what it is that what we need and what we want. There has now come about deregulation, and some people don't understand what deregulation actually happened and how did it affect. And some people thought, well, hey, with deregulation and we'll have competition out there and more providers and all this, and my utility bill will be cut in half or whatever. And that wasn't really true, and it still is not true, because the first thing that we have to think about when it comes to gas and electric there's two real aspects to it. One aspect is the gas that flows is itself the product that flows through into our houses, or the electric, the actual current that flows over the lines. Then so that's that one part. The other part is the pipe that the gas comes through, or the wire that the electricity flows over to get into our house. And the provider of each can be different. And that's the thing that we never had to worry about before, because you had NYSEG, and NYSEG was the one that owned the poles and the lines and the electric and owned the pipes and the gas that came through the pipe. And there was no big deal. Well, that has changed now to where it isn't the entire utility service that is covered with the deregulation. That wouldn't really be practical. The only aspect that affects the deregulation affects is the current coming over the wire and the gas feeding through the pipe. The actual infrastructure to get it into our houses has not changed, and that is the local service provider. I use NYSEG for our purposes today. So when you get your utility bill at the end of each month, there's two aspects to it. There's the delivery charge and the supply charge. And one involves getting it into your house, and the other is the product that's coming into your house. The infrastructure is covered by our local provider, NYSEG, that if you have a pipe break or that if you have a wire break or something like that, that is an issue that NYSEG takes care of. Actually, NYSEG would, that's where our problem is when we have one, is usually the provision of it. As far as the current and the amount that we're being charged and the gas that flows through the pipe and the amount that we're being charged, that is actually open to competition. And there are many, and I think more and more and more are coming on to provide that service for us. And as consumers, we can investigate what the options are and make the best choice that we can. And again, there are many service providers offering different things that are unique to our individual circumstances. So we have to sit back and we say, what do we need it? When do we need it? How do we want it provided? Do we want it to be sourced from some less carbon? We want to have our source of electricity to be from some other manner, wind, solar, hydro. There may be options available out there. Then we throw on this whole new thing that's coming to us, which is kind of attached to the utility market, is now solar. And in particular, two types of solar. Solar that you would have directly on your own house where you put the panels up on your roof. Or now we have this new phenomenon that's starting to work up, which I won't spend a lot of time talking about, but it's there's instances where entities are trying to develop solar fields where they may approach a farmer that has a ton of acreage and say, hey, we want to put up a solar field, and that people might be able to buy into that. That's a kind of a topic that I won't spend a lot of time talking about, but an issue that needs to be addressed. And again, an issue that we might start talking about here at one of our sessions at Cornell Cooperative Extension. So as I indicated, there are a number of providers of the services, of the utility, for lack of a better term, product, the gas and electric. And they all have to go through the New York State Public Service Commission. And actually, the rates are listed on the public service website. I can't speak for how up to date they are, but what you want to do, at least to do your due diligence, you're being a good consumer, is to go and check and see what the various rates are, and then maybe identify providers that might be someone that you would be interested in dealing with, and then check with them directly to find out what the current rates are in particular. So the rates come in many different ways, and the two primary ways are whether you get a fixed rate or whether you get a variable rate, and that's exactly how it sounds. The fixed rate is a rate that is fixed, and so from the electric perspective, they always do it in kilowatt hours, and in the gas, it's therms, and you could get a quote for a rate of per kilowatt hour or per therm. And actually, you can take your old history and figure out how much utility units you've used in prior periods, and then make a decision. You can kind of get an estimate of where it might be, where you might, how much your utilities might cost you by just multiplying the number of kilowatt hours times the rate that you're charged or the rate that's being offered to you, to give you a good sense of what your utility rates or utility bills would be and how much they would amount to. The important thing is to look at what the different options are. Decide for yourself, do I want a fixed rate or do I want a variable rate? The variable rate fluctuates with the market. So if the market is up, then the rates will go up. If the market is down, it'll go down. Utility rates have been historically been pretty low recently. You can just see that in the oil prices and the hit on the energy industry because of the decrease in prices. But that doesn't mean that a month from now things aren't going to change. And typically, this would seem to make sense, but in the winter time, the rates seem to be higher because there's more use. I know last winter we made it through pretty well. The winter before, oh my gosh, it was horrific. And the rates will fluctuate depending on the amount of usage that is expected. So if I don't recommend this, but if you want to play the market and say, okay, I'm going to take the gamble, we're going to have a warm winter. I'm going to go with a variable rate because the rates will go down. And then all of a sudden we get these major snowstorms and it gets really cold and all of a sudden the rates go up and you get stuck. Or you might be one to say, you know what, the rates may go down, but I don't want to take the risk. I want to have a firm number in my head. Then you would consider getting a fixed rate to where you'll pay, 5 cents a kilowatt hour or whatever the rate would be, or 11 cents or 12 cents or 8 cents. I would recommend that this time of year that you be the one to go out there and do your investigation now, because the rates are typically lower in the summer. And if you're going to especially get a fixed rate, you might want to look at that now. I don't know if it's in your best interest. Unless you expect you're at the beginning of the winter and you didn't choose and now you decide, well, I better go out and get something and I'm going to sign in to get something fixed. You may be thinking, well, as the winter progresses, it's going to be longer, it's going to be deeper, and so I'll get a fixed rate now, thinking, well, it's just going to go up later on. That's a decision that someone has to make. It's always better to be able to make decisions without being under the pressure of well, I got to do something now. All of a sudden, the rates are starting to go up. I got to sign it. Sit back now, make your evaluation, see what the rates are, and then you can lock in and decide what is the best to do. The other thing that you need to see that with this deregulation and signing on to a new energy supplier, in some instances, the supplier wants to bind you for a certain period of time. So there could be cancellation fees if you cancel before the time period that you have agreed upon, whether it's 6 months or a year or whatever. Just be aware of that. You may still want to sign into it saying, well, I'm not going to change at least in 6 months, and so I'm willing to take that. But again, there is that possibility out there. There are also budget plans where you can spread it over a length of time. Those are just a spreading purpose. It doesn't guarantee that your total bill is going to be limited to X number of dollars a month. It just means that they're hoping, based on your history, to spread out your costs over the course of a period of time. So let's say a year. The bills are negligible during the summertime. We'd use a little or no heat. We may have, if you have air conditioning, then that may increase a little bit. But if you don't have air conditioning, you use virtually no energy during the summertime. It's light until 8:30, 9 o'clock, and there's no heat and all that stuff. And to where your bill would be negligible, $10 a month or $5 a month. But in the wintertime, it might be $250 a month. And so let's spread that out. Let's make it a little more during the summer so it can be a little less in the wintertime. But understand, that's just a spreading. That doesn't mean that you are limited to, let's say it works out to be, for lack of a better number, $50 a month. That doesn't mean that your obligation is only limited to $50 a month. With these budget plans, what it means is that they're attempting to spread out the cost over the entire period. But maybe we have a harsh winter. Maybe we have a really light winter. That would increase your actual usage. And there will come a day, I refer to it as the day of reckoning. There will come a point in time when things have to be balanced out at the end. So it could be that at the end of the period, a year, that you have used, over this budget, you have used $200 more in energy than what was anticipated and leveled out. You're going to get a bill for $200 at the end. And I'll get complaints in our office saying, oh my gosh, my bill went up by all this much. But understand that that's what the leveling purpose is just to try and help out a little bit, but it's not a guarantee that you're going to, be limited at $50 a month. You will, if you do sign on to a fixed rate plan, you will be limited to X number of dollars per kilowatt hour or X number of dollars per therm for the utility. If you use more, you have to pay more. If you use less, you have to pay less. But the rate that you're being charged at will be constant. So we as good consumers have to sit back and say, okay, what's our best option here? I suggest going on to the Public Service Commission website, www.dps.gov, I think. I think I have an old one. It might be www.dps.ny.gov. That would be the one. To give you an idea of what the rates are and an idea of who the providers are and whether they provide, because you have a way to look up whether they provide gas and electric or both. They might be listed at both. You might find someone that just does electric and sign up with them. And you have the right. You can sign up with them for your electric and somebody else for your gas. You just investigate all the options. Do I use a variable plan? Do I use a fixed rate plan? That's a way to look it up. There have been instances where people have been contacted about switching their electric provider. You have to understand that this is they're referred to as ESCOs, energy service companies. Some people have been anecdotally, by complaints that were sent to our office, maybe think that they got a call and it was NYSEG when it was in fact not NYSEG. It was another ESCO. So you make sure you know who you're dealing with if it's somebody that contacts you. Also, you may have heard of the entity called Ambit Energy. Ambit Energy is, for lack of a better term, the Amway of energy providers, meaning it's a multi-level marketing system where your friends might be sellers, or they're the ones that have their own business and they want to have energy, and you can purchase it through Ambit. And my only comment is make sure you understand all of the terms and make sure that you get it in writing. Because any ESCO could say, well, we guarantee that your energy cost will be lower by a certain percent than it would be from the main service provider in the market, whatever that means. And what you need to do as a good consumer is to get it definitively, what are you talking about? What rate, when you say it'll be less than the rate of NYSEG would charge, figure out and make sure you get it in writing. What charge are they referencing? Are they referencing the variable rate market charge that NYSEG would charge, which conceivably would be the highest price that they would ever charge? It would not be the fixed rate that NYSEG charges or some other provider charges. And to me, it doesn't make any difference what it is. The thing that is important to me is that the consumer understands what they're measuring against. And if it's, it'll be 1% less than whatever charge it is, and the person understands what that is, then at the end of the year, it should have been 1% less than what it would have been given what the charges were at that time. But sometimes people have signed up saying, oh, it's going to be 1% less, so I'm going to save at least 1%, so I'll just sign up. And they didn't realize that if they had just investigated more, they might have been able to find another provider that could have given them a fixed rate that was actually lower than what would have been 1% less. So the important thing, and I hope the rule that we're getting across and the advice we're getting across is be a good consumer. Understand what's out there. Investigate the options, and then make the decisions accordingly. Another area that kind of falls in similar to this, it's not electric and gas, but a lot of times when we think about electric and gas, we're thinking about heating our homes. Another way that we're heating our homes significantly is through propane or fuel oil. And that's another area that consumers need to be very good at. If you fuel by propane or cook by propane or fuel by fuel oil, it's really important to be a good consumer. I have seen throughout the years the prices between fuel oil and propane providers can be dramatically different. Dramatically. 50 cents a gallon more at one place than another place. So it's important to investigate that now. Don't just stick with I'm just going to sign up with so-and-so because they're the company that has always provided to me. And then you come back and complain to our office because your bills skyrocket during the wintertime, and you found out that the place down across town was charging 50 cents less, and you should have been charged 50 cents less. No, it's what you agreed to. And it's so, again, now that we're in the warmer weather, the best time is to investigate now and to find out what the prices are and to figure out what would be the best price and works based on your consumption. Some places have minimum consumption, so some people may pay for propane, but they only pay it for their cooking instead of their heating. But there's a minimum amount of propane that needs to be had, and if you don't, then you get stuck. Again, you check prior usage, figure out what works best for you, get the best price and service for you. How often will they fill you up? Is there a separate charge if they have to come out on a special basis? What's their schedule for coming out? Maybe check your usage and see, okay, I have a tank that's this big. During the depths of 2 winters ago when it was brutally cold for weeks on end, how much did I use? Compare that to last winter when we didn't maybe use as much, and then make a determination. Because usually when you lock into a rate for propane and fuel, it's usually for a set amount of service. So a certain amount of gallons. And if you go above that, then you won't have the rate that you had negotiated for your, I'll just grab a number, 5,000 gallons. and maybe you end up using 7,500. Well, you have the set rate for the 5,000, but then you use more than that, and you may have to pay what they refer to as the spot rate, which is the rate that's that day. And if you're in the depths of winter and you have to have a fill up and you're past your designated rate, then you're stuck. The other side of it is, what if you get 5,000? You say, I'm going to hedge. I usually use about 5,000 gallons. But I don't want to get stuck with a bad winter and have to pay the spot rate up to 7,500. I'm going to order 7,500 gallons. What happens if you don't use it? You could be responsible because, in essence, here's what happens. When you go and order your propane and fuel, the company, and this would be the reputable companies, go out in the market today. Let's say you do it today. They will go out in the market today or very soon and get it at the lower rates. That allows them to make money because let's say it's $2 a gallon. I'm just grabbing a number. $2 a gallon. It may cost them $1.75 a gallon, and they make the money on the difference. So everybody knows where they fit in. Okay, we know when you call me to sign up for fuel oil with me, I know the rate now for the winter is $2.25 a gallon. So I'm going to charge you $2.50 a gallon. So we can get you 5,500 gallons at $2.50 a gallon for. Okay, we're good. They're good because they can make money. You're good because you're going to get fuel at a good price, and you're guaranteed that it's going to be there. The problem could occur that if there's an irreputable entity who thinks, well, you know what? I'll sell it to them for $2.50, but I'm thinking the prices are going to go down this winter, so I'm going to hold off hedging it. I'm going to hold off not getting it, which would be ridiculous, but we had some issues several years ago where that happened. They didn't go out onto the market, and their guess was wrong. And the prices actually were above $2.50, and they actually went out of business because they have to buy it for more than what they actually were getting paid, reimbursed for. So the reputable ones, most of the ones that you're going to be dealing with, they're going to go out immediately on the market and get it today. So they're going to go out and get and say, okay, we will pay you energy supplier, whoever it is, $2.25 a gallon for 7,500 gallons. Well, if you don't use the 7,500 gallons, they're going to take a bath again, and you're going to have to be responsible. So here's the thing. You figure out what your use is. You do the best guess, best estimate of what it's going to be, and lock in and then make your decisions. If you wait and then you have two problems. One is the price will go way up, and then you need a delivery and you have to pay the higher price. And two, more importantly, is you may need a delivery and you want to call somebody and they say, well, we're really busy. We can't supply you. We've got all these people that we have contracts for that we're filling up their place today. We can't get to you for a couple of days. Like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Be a good consumer. Set back now. Make your determinations now. Sign up. And then you can put your feet up on the winter and not have to worry about whether you're going to be running out or anything like that. Also understand if there's, on top of what you're paying, are there delivery charges? Are there cancellation fees? Are there minimum charges that are required? All these things you need to decide upon. And then hopefully everything will work out fine. There are other utilities, though, besides providing our heat and electric. We have telephones. I mean, I can't fathom when I first started coming out here to Cordell Cooperative Extension and talked about utilities and phone service, how much different it is today even than it was, I say, back then. It was a really long time ago, 19 years, but it seems like yesterday. But things have changed so much. I probably barely had a cell phone back then. And if I did have a cell phone, it was attached to my car. You didn't carry one around. And I had to pay 10 cents a minute to use that phone. And I think back at those days, long distance charges were based on in most instances, a per minute charge. And we didn't have all these bundled services that we have now. I mean, it really is phenomenal, and it really is great. But we still have to be good consumers based on, what our usage is. As far as homes, I know now, I don't think twice about picking up the phone and calling somebody in California or calling somebody outside of my local area and not think twice about it. And at the end of the month, I don't have to worry about how many minutes I was talking to someone. And I remember being back in college eons ago and contacting my parents if I wanted to speak to them. I would go, because we didn't have cell phones or anything. We didn't have a phone in our dorm room. So I went down to the end of the hall, and there was this thing that you put money into. It was a pay phone. And, of course, if you called direct, you'd have to have all kinds of money to do. So you didn't want to do that. But you didn't call collect either, which was where, for our young people out there that might not know what a collect telephone call is I would call, and my parents who would receiving the call, I'd have to go through the operator, and I would have to call, and it would mean that the charges were going to be reversed. In other words, I would be making the call, but my parents would have to pay for it, and it would be on a per minute basis, and you'd have to pay extra because you had an operator involved and the whole thing. And so my parents didn't want to pay for that. Although college was a lot less expensive back then than it is now, it was still, relatively speaking, quite expensive, and they didn't want to have to spend all this extra money on telephone calls. So the plan was I would call home through the operator and ask for the dog. Call collect for my dog. And my parents would answer the phone and say, no, so-and-so isn't here right now, and hang up the phone. So they wouldn't accept the charges. I'm sure the operators knew what was going on. And then I would sit at the payphone, and my parents would call me back direct. And it would be a lot cheaper than me calling home collect. And that's how we would get around it. And then it's evolved to so many other things, and now that everybody has cell phones and everybody has, people are cutting off their landlines and all that stuff. But we still have to be good consumers as it relates to what our individual circumstances are. I've old school, and I'm having a tough time cutting that cord at home and not giving up that phone number I've had for 25 years and all that. But maybe it'll come to a day when that happens. But we have to choose what it is that we're going to use, our phones for. People can get service through a telephone provider. They can get service through their cable provider now as a bundled service. They can have neither of those and have cell phone service, and then they can have different types of cell phone service. And so when I talk about that, what I mean is everybody's circumstances are different, and you have to choose what works the best for you. Now, it might be someone who lives in a rural area, might not have good cell phone coverage, might only make only local calls. So their particular plan that they end up choosing may be different than a plan that I might use. I have children all over the country, Texas, Ohio, New York, outside of the 607 area code. And so we have a phone at home with a bundled service that is a monthly fee. Just whatever the monthly fee is. There's no extra charges for long distance or anything. It's all included as part of the bill, which of course makes the bill a little bit higher. But we choose to do that. But for someone else, it might be that their kids are all local. They don't really have a need for making a long-distance call. They may not need a bundled package that allows them to make unlimited long-distance calls as a part of their monthly rate. the thing I'm trying to get across is whatever circumstances are yours, be a good consumer, evaluate your options, and then you can choose the best package that works for you. And of course, me also being in that high-tech realm, I also carry around cell phones. And my kids carry around cell phones. And my wife carries around a cell phone. Then I sit back and I knock myself in the head saying, why do I have a phone in my house if I have all this? But be that as it may, we choose. And then there's different cell phone packages that are available. Do you have a package whereby you get a certain number of minutes a month? And if you're not a heavy cell phone user, you only use it for a limited purpose, you only use it for emergencies and things, then that might be appropriate. I'll use an example of my parents. My parents are not high in the tech realm, but it's difficult for we children and the grandchildren to convince them to, you have a cell phone for a reason, so turn it on so that when you're out somewhere, we can get a hold of you. But they have a minute package where they don't use it very much. So they just pay per minutes for a certain amount per month. And that works great for them. I can tell you, their telecommunication bill is significantly lower than my telecommunication bill. My telecommunication bill, I don't even want to tell you how high it is, but I could finance a really good car for the monthly payment that I make for my telecommunications expenses. But that's unique to me, and that's what works well for us. We can reach, it's amazing, we can reach each other much easier. Before, you had to if you called somebody, they had to be home in order for you to be able to speak with them. Now think about how our mindsets have changed. When you call someone now, how aggravated do you get when they don't answer? I never used to worry about, you almost expected that you were going to have to leave a message. Now it's, where are they? They aren't answering the telephone. They haven't called us back. I'll give you an example. That my son is in medical school, and he's on his last summer break this year, but he is in northern New York right now as a part of his medical program where he's doing a week of rural medicine way up in the North Country. And I've tried to call him this week. We usually talk once a day or every other day. And I haven't heard from him. And I was like, what is going on with him? Why isn't he getting back? And then I realized he's probably in the middle of nowhere where there is no cell phone coverage that I can't get a hold of them. Or that we send a text message to someone and we don't immediately get a response. That was never something that we ever thought about before. But the world has expanded for us, especially when it comes to utilities, and that we're able to communicate with others that we were never able to communicate with before. But there is a cost associated with that. And people have to decide what works best for them. Do we get a cell phone that actually, this is something that my kids, I'm tough to get across sometimes. It says, you know that thing that you carry around with you that you're always on? You can actually make a telephone call with it. Because usually it's text messaging or emails or they're on the internet or something like that. I said, you actually can dial a number and actually speak to someone using one of these things. But it really is amazing. But we have to be good consumers and investigate all of our particular options. Same thing with our viewing. Our television viewing has changed in such different ways. I remember that day that we got a thing called cable. I had 13 channels. Thought it was the greatest thing in the world. 13 channels. And there was this new channel came on that was the Entertainment Sports Programming Network, now known as ESPN. They came on and they showed stuff. I didn't have to I could watch a baseball game not on just Saturday afternoon. It was starting to be on all the time. Now we get 180 channels and there still isn't anything on TV to watch. But we're going past that now. Now we have the internet and we have YouTube channels where people are producing their own video stuff and we're watching, cats and dogs and all kinds of stuff. And we're, television shows that we get over the internet now that we don't, that we never would have thought about, that you'd have to have CBS or NBC or PBS or something produced for us, is now being produced mass market, in essence, to where we're watching shows to where there's this new phenomenon over the last several years, 5 to 10 years, called binge watching that we never would have thought about. We used to have to wait every week until the next MASH episode came on to see what happened. Now we can watch an entire season if you have nothing better to do on a weekend and lock yourself in a room and just watch a whole season worth of shows. So it's being provided to us much differently. We have to decide. We have more options, which is good for consumers, but we have to be good consumers and decide. Do we cut the cord? Do we not have cable TV anymore? And do we just go with something like Netflix, a bunch of them? If we have Netflix and Hulu and a few others that are out there, and we add those prices up and it provides us with everything that we need, can we then cut the cord at our cable where it is starting to get really expensive for us? It depends on the facts and circumstances. Understand what you're going to get. What are you going to get? Do we go satellite? Do we get our television through satellite? One, are we going to get adequate service with our satellite provider? Two, are we going to get our local channels through our satellite provider? Maybe you will only get our national news off of an internet-provided source and not have access to the local news, and that's what we really want. Again, it's based on the facts and circumstances, and then make the decision. Kind of laughed. Cable has, we have Time Warner, which is now morphing over to Spectrum. Ultimately, it's Charter merged. Time Warner merged into Charter, and Charter is now starting the Spectrum service, which I think is what we're going to see it down the road, maybe months down the road. What is going to be provided to us for that compared to what we would get if we just got a few of these other channels. It also seems like we're becoming busier and busier and busier. We don't have time to sit down at 8 o'clock on Thursday nights. Well, we have that DVR thing, and maybe we can record the stations and that sort of thing. But there's additional expense associated with it. DVR boxes, and then now there's talk about Google coming up with their own box so that we don't have to have the box that the cable provider provides that we have to rent and all that sort of thing. Again, not that complicated that you can't at least sit down and be a good consumer and decide what the options are and weigh the expenses versus the options, and then make the ultimate determination. Internet providers, same thing. There are many internet providing options that are out there. People have to decide what works best for them. How fast a speed are you going to use? Depends on what your usage is. If all you have 5 people in your house and they're all streaming different video, you may need a more robust package of streaming, of internet service than someone who is in my house where the kids are gone, and so it's my wife and I. And so we're, at most it's 2 of us on a device. Usually one or none of us are on a device at a particular point in time, and maybe we need a little lesser robust and less expensive type of internet provision. It all depends on our facts and circumstances. The important thing is that we be good consumers, that we decide what our various options are, choose what is best for our individual circumstances, and I think we'll go a long way toward being a good consumer. If someone has a problem related to their utility service, you can feel free to contact our office, the New York State Attorney General's office, and we'd be able to guide you as to where you might want to go. Maybe if it's a utility cost issue, you're not being charged what the rate was that you were told, or the rate that's filed with the Public Service Commission. Maybe, that's the place that we will direct you. Maybe it's that you were misled into a certain product or service that wasn't fully described to you, or that the answers that were given to your questions were not correct. Then you could file a complaint with us, and we would try to help you resolve those. If anyone has any questions related to utility service or anything, I'd be glad to answer those. Otherwise, again, thank you for coming out to visit with us. We're here the second Thursday of every month at 11 a.m., and we would be glad to see you. It's always great when we have people out there in our crowd to help us. And for those of you out on TV land, let me make a personal invitation. Come join us. Come join us. If you have questions after our sessions are over with, I stick around for a little while so I can try and help answer those questions. Otherwise, thank you very much for attending, and hopefully we'll see you sometime.